We're currently experiencing gasoline shortages in many states, and it's getting worse. There's a state of emergency declared for 17 states and Washington, D.C., and this was declared regionally. Now the states themselves have been declaring emergencies as the amount of gas stations running out of fuel continues to grow. The numbers are getting freaky. Of course, this has to do with the Colonial pipeline hack ransomware that resulted in the shuttering of the largest oil pipeline in the country. Now, many people have started panic buying, and there are fears that supplies won't be delivered. But here's where things get much stranger. Before the Colonial pipeline hack, numerous outlets ran stories suggesting that there were going to be gas shortages soon due to a shortage of drivers. Nobody delivering gas, you can't get gas. Now we're seeing something else that's not being covered in the national outlets. Food shortages, supply shortages. We've been seeing the stories about inflation. We've been seeing the cost of lumber and steel skyrocket. But when I look to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Post, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, we're not hearing about food shortages. I saw a tweet from a conservative personality saying, the media's claiming there's no shortages and then showing photos of empty shelves. And I thought to myself, I haven't heard anything about food shortages, except when a couple of the people here at Timcast went to the store to go buy some supplies. We're looking for bacon and couldn't get any. And it didn't seem all that big of a deal, just no bacon. But there are a lot of other things that we couldn't get either. We were trying to get local beef. That was kind of hard to get. So I started looking to local news outlets, and lo and behold, there are many stories from local outlets about food shortages. Like this one I have displayed on the screen right now. Omaha Metro restaurant owners face tough decision amid food supply shortage. Could it be that there is something bigger at play that we don't understand because we don't have news media anymore? This is the scary reality. When you don't actually have journalists to report to you the most important stories because they've become too obsessed and desperate. They're obsessed with Donald Trump, with Liz Cheney and the GOP, whatever stupid nonsense they've gotten themselves into. And I'm looking at what's going to affect us. I'm worried about myself. I'll be real. A lot of the investigating that I'm doing is because I want to make sure I know what I have to do in the event there is a major crisis. And what do I see? Stories from the AP, runaway inflation. But what does that mean for the rest of us? Well, our savings will be weakened. But what do I have to worry about now in the immediate? I look at these national outlets. I don't see stories about food shortages. I don't see photos of empty shelves. They're obsessed with the GOP. They're obsessed with Trump. Then I look at some local outlets, and it's the same thing over and over again. 6 NBC, Omaha Metro. We've got this one, ABC7 On Your Side, KATV, Arkansas. Food, paper supply shortages, gardening supply. Gardening is skyrocketing, due to pandemic food shortage fears in Nevada. Cat food shortages, lumber, cleaning supplies, Northeast Ohio. There are shortages across the board, and we're not getting that from major national outlets. Maybe we aren't paying close enough attention, or maybe news media has broken and we are not being served anymore with information we need to better function. Which brings me now to the gas prices. I saw this tweet from Patrick DeHaan. He said, after reloading current outages by state, I just got the chills. Data coming shortly. Maybe it's just panic. Maybe the media is just trying to drum up shock content. I don't know. The truth is, I'm just some guy on the internet who's reading the news, same as most people. But I look at all of these stories and then try and tell you what my thoughts and opinions are on all of these things. And it seems like we may be entering a shortage economy. As the Christian Science Monitor reported it, from lumber to labor, are we now in a shortage economy? Let me show you the latest numbers on the gasoline shortages that are apparently giving Patrick DeHaan, the gas buddy guy, chills. And then we'll talk about the shortages affecting some local areas. And first, I just implore you, check your local areas to see if there are shortages. Don't panic buy. But the reality is there's no real answer to panic buying. The reason people panic buy is because they don't have the things they think they need. And so they decide, I'll go to the store and get them. And then the shortages hit because people just think, it'll always be there for me. And then when they realize maybe I should stock up, it's not a panic. It's just maybe I should go to the store now, but everyone goes at the same time. Before we get started, Head over to timcast.com and become a member by clicking the members only button. You can sign up with Stripe or PayPal, then go to the members area and get access to exclusive members only content from the Timcast IRL podcast. There's a really good reason you should do this if you support my work, because right there on the front page at timcast.com, we have this story. YouTube has hit Steven Crowder with 2 strikes. He is 1 strike away from permanently being banned on YouTube. Censorship is real. Hillary Clinton has called for it. And you think if I'm having these conversations, that we're talking about these things, you're commenting on these things, the establishment, Google likes that we're able to communicate outside the main channels. The reason why they don't like these conversations, they want to control what you can see. They don't want you panicking, and you shouldn't. But it's like I mentioned, it's not about panicking. Right now, there are a lot of people who probably just realized they're low on gas. I went out the other day, checked my truck. I was about a third of a tank, and I was like, I probably should fill up. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't filling up crazy tanks, like massive 100-gallon tanks. I wasn't trying to hoard gas. I was like, need gas. I went to the gas station. It was fine. But what happens when everyone hears the news and they decide to do it? Maybe one of the reasons the mainstream national outlets don't report on shortages is because they know if they tell you the truth about what's happening, you'll decide I should go out and get some for myself, which will make the problem worse. I'm not suggesting people should go out and buy stuff. I'm telling you, it's kind of a conundrum. Well, they can't control this conversation. It's very likely that I get banned at some point, just like they're going after Steven Crowder. Maybe you don't like Steven Crowder, fine. But the fact is, on the left, they've gone after people who have been talking about Israel. They've been talking about about war and being anti-war. They don't want these conversations to happen. They think they're bad. So go to timcast.com, become a member. Let me show you the latest gas shortage data from Patrick DeHaan. He says, gasoline outages by state, percent of all stations without gasoline. In Washington, D.C., 10%. Florida, 11%. Alabama, 7%. Now here's where it gets crazy. Georgia, 43%. North Carolina, 65%. Virginia, 44%. Now, I'm hearing people say it's just panic buying, but I got to stop for a second. How could it be that in Virginia, 44% are without gas? In South Carolina, 43%. In North Carolina, 65%. But in Mississippi, closer to the start of this pipeline, only 5%. Are you telling me that people, as soon as you cross the state line, you go panic mode? Or could it be that there are different delivery schedules and they've run out of gas? I don't know for sure. I really don't. But I want to point out something that I mentioned this the other day. We mentioned it on Timcast IRL. Needs to be talked about. ABC News. Lack of truck drivers could lead to fuel shortage this summer. April 29th. They were talking about fuel shortages well before this cyber attack. From CNN on April 27th. Coming this summer. Gas stations running out of gas. These stories did not result in gasoline shortages. People saw this news from major mainstream news outlets. So I know I mentioned previously that the news wasn't reporting on certain shortages. I'm not trying to suggest they don't report at all. I'm just saying maybe they don't care about local stories, or you just can't rely on national news for the bigger picture. But hold on. ABC, CNN, Fox, other outlets, The Guardian, I believe, they all reported that there were going to be shortages. Why didn't anybody run out and buy gas? I don't know. Cyber attack is punchier news, I guess. Reeks of chaos. The pipeline being shut down made people freak out. And they decided, I should probably fill up on gas. Now, we've seen there's some photos where I saw one photo where a guy's got what looks like 1,000-gallon container. It's like being pulled by his pickup truck, and he's pouring the thing, filling it up. I'm like, are you nuts, dude? That's crazy. Now, that is panic buying. And there's some where a guy's filling up he's got 8 single-gallon gas containers, and I'm like, okay, you probably shouldn't do that either. But there's also stories about, I saw one where somebody had a regular 2-gallon tank they were filling up, and people were screaming at them saying you are hoarding. And it's like, it's for the lawnmower. What am I supposed to do? I needed gas. The news breaks. People check their cars, and they're like, running low, I should go fill up. Lines out the door. And then people buy up what's left of this gas. Now, I've heard reports and I've had people hit me up saying that they're experts in this area. There is a trucker shortage, which means gas is delayed and moving slowly. But this will be alleviated by the end of the week. People will get the gas. They'll be full on gas. And then they're kind of just wasting their time, I suppose. But I looked at these local stories. From NBC6 News on your side, Omaha. Omaha Metro restaurant owners face tough decision amid food supply shortage. I saw this and I said, I don't live in Omaha. So Omaha is dealing with a shortage. How does that impact me? Then I saw another story. Arkansas. People in Nevada worried about food shortages. Wait. What's going on? Could it be that there are food shortages in certain areas? Or could it be local news just trying to scare people into buying stuff? I don't know, man. I'm not omniscient. But I see these stories and I have to wonder, how is it that we're hearing there's chicken shortages? A massive demand for chicken because of the chicken war. Cat food shortages, lumber, cleaning supplies, steel, chlorine shortages. There's gas shortages. Could it be a coincidence? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm just going to say, when I see news that says certain local areas are hit with food shortages, there's a current gas shortage, there's rampant inflation. We have this story from the AP about runaway inflation fears. I just can't sit here thinking it's all a coincidence. On May 4th, in Omaha, they reported food shortages well before there were gas shortages. What's happening? We're not masters of the universe. Human beings and journalists can't see literally everything. And the mainstream media likes to scare you, but also insult people who challenge the establishment narrative. So it's just chaotic. Could it be that something we haven't figured out yet is happening all around us? Could it be that the infrastructure of this country is eroding and it hasn't caught up to national media? Maybe. I'm sorry, I don't know. But I can tell you this. WOWT says big changes could be on the way for your favorite restaurants as owners say they are facing supply shortages. Ping Wayne owns Ming's restaurant in Papillion. He says he is dealing with a huge shortage of products, everything from produce to proteins to the oil food is cooked in. Things we would order 6 or 7 cases of, our suppliers are telling us we can only have 2 cases, so it's fair for everybody else. Here's a post he put on Facebook from a week before this story. He says, many of you may be aware, maybe not. We're experiencing a major supply chain breakdown due to the effects of the ongoing pandemic. This is from May 4th, 2021. This is not from last year. They say on top of the shortage, prices for those hard to find products are skyrocketing. Meat prices have tripled. Oil prices, like we use 3-gallon jugs of soy oil, and it used to be $11.98. It's now $33.75. They're saying, we had Max Kaiser on the show. Tim Castirelli said inflation's at 10 to 15%. I'm sorry. When you're telling me that oils for foods is up 300%, maybe inflation is not at 10 to 15. Or maybe it is because of labor, I suppose. Wang says his business is absorbing those extra costs as long as they can because they don't want to raise prices. It will happen. Other restaurants say they've already been forced to do just that. We did just go through a menu adjustment. We needed to. We kind of held off on doing it, said Nicole Jesse, La Casa GM. Owners say they have been told the entire food supply chain is having issues. One of the complaints that I'm getting from some of my vendors is that there are not enough people working at processing or picking produce and then just having delivery drivers. Owners are getting by for now by working with multiple vendors and suppliers. I'm on the phone more than I am here just trying to figure out what's cost effective and what's not, said Wang. Wang says he has been able to substitute menu item favorites when supplies run out. But if things don't change in the future, some of your favorite meals could be temporarily off the menu. Everything would be temporary until things get back to normal. So if we have to take something off the menu or several things off the menu, I want people to know it's just temporary. Restaurant owners say their suppliers are telling them chicken will soon be the most difficult item to find. Owners say that a major concern, and if those supplies do not run out, menus are sure to change. In Arkansas, the same thing. Some Arkansas restaurants increased prices amid food paper supply shortage. This stuff's kind of freaking me out. This story's from April 22nd. Where were we when all this news is breaking about food shortages, bubbling up beneath us, and we're hyper-focused on the national stage? Maybe that's what the establishment needs. Liz Cheney being booted from the GOP leadership position. I see a lot of Trump supporters saying they're trying to distract you from what's happening in Arizona with the election audit. Or maybe it's all just because the things that actually matter, food, is skyrocketing in cost. And they'd love for you to be distracted by anything but that, because the last thing we need is people going to stores and buying up stuff like crazy. That would cause a major disruption, and it would escalate a domino effect that would result in people panicking, which could result in destabilization. They're tough questions. Do I talk about these stories? People, I may have mentioned this in this segment, but somebody commented on IRL saying, here comes Tim Pool selling fear again. What do? Do I say, I don't want people to be scared, I don't want them to panic, so you know what? Let's not talk about these news stories. Or am I just a guy on the internet reading the same news and telling you how I feel about it and what I think about it? And what are the results of that? These are very serious questions. I'm sure many of these major mainstream news organizations have asked themselves. Well, I am not one to believe in the idea of a centralization of anything for the most part. And I think decentralization is probably the best way to deal with it. There may be detrimental ramifications for me doing this segment saying, look at these food shortages. It may result in people panicking. I hope they don't. But what am I supposed to do? Decide that I, as the arbiter of truth, must make sure the masses don't know what's happening out of fear of some negative result. These are hard questions. They really are. And there's no real good answer. But I'm not going to hoard what I know, whisper to my friends, make sure you go buy gas and food. I'm going to talk about what I'm reading in the news and what I think might happen from it. ABC 7, Little Rock, Arkansas. Restaurants are struggling with more than a labor shortage. Many restaurants have seen their food supply and disposable product costs rise in recent weeks. This has led to some restaurants being forced to increase their prices in order to make a profit and not lose money. Threefold Noodles and Dumpling Company has been located in downtown Little Rock for over 3 years. Lisa Shang is the owner, and she said their food and disposable product suppliers have increased between 50 and 200%. Let's just pause for a second. They say consumer goods are up 4.2, 4.9% or whatever the number is. What happens when somebody's working in an office building and they need lunch? They're not going to go to the grocery store and buy raw goods to cook a lunch in the kitchen. They're going to go to the dumpling company and they're going to say, I'd like the number 1, please. And the lady's going to say, it's double what it was. It used to be $10 for lunch. Now it's 20 because we can't get these goods. And that guy's going to say, I can't afford that. He's going to go to his boss. Lunch was double. I need more money. This is outrageous. The boss is going to say, I can't afford that. He's going to have to dig in somewhere or price cuts or go to his clients and say, it's going to cost you more now. I mean, we got to raise wages. Hyperinflation is a real possibility, but you got to think about the shortages. And I think a lot of this has to do with Joe Biden paying $16 an hour to not work. What they're saying with these shortages is that at the processing plants at these companies, nobody wants to work. It's not just fast food restaurants. That's the surface level. Think about that story from when Donald Trump was president and they arrested a bunch of illegal immigrants. They said regular Americans came in and worked for $14 an hour. You're getting $16 an hour on unemployment. So now there's no one processing the chicken. They say, quote, they have a lack of people, labor to process the chicken. It's not because there's no chicken or no pig. It's because nobody works. After the COVID-19 pandemic hit the restaurant industry hard in 2020, Zhang was forced to increase her menu prices by 65 cents on average to stay afloat. Previously, some Arkansas businesses had to raise menu prices due to the minimum wage increase. You have no idea how many nights I don't sleep. I just heard we don't have a bowl in. The next day we don't have pork. Lisa said about the food shortages. To compensate her customers, she dropped the price of beer by $1. I think this year people like to drink. It helps them relax. Hear, hear, lady. I hear you. Threefold isn't the only restaurant low in supply and labor. Angie Casper is one of the owners of Casper's restaurant in Clarksville. Clarksville is not Little Rock, one of the big Arkansas cities. We are farmers here. We are Walmart employees. So you can't look at your increased food cost and then just broadly across the menu up everything. Over the last 3 weeks, she has seen the cost of food, especially beef, increase. She decided to add $2 to steak dinners in exchange for a free sweet tea. This is not an effort on our part to increase our profit margin. This would be a terrible time to do that. It's just an effort in our part. We just want to not lose. Both restaurant owners believe that unemployment and stimulus payments have impacted the labor market. Right now, it is very easy for people to sit at home and get paid benefits and not have to work. Go into a restaurant, it's hard work. The kitchen cooks, they work their tails off. But if I could sit at home and pay my bills and not have to work, why not? Think about what that means. We talked about it the other day. It means that there are people getting money from the government, printed or borrowed, and producing nothing. And this is causing the supply chain to crumble. The great UBI experiment showing it doesn't work. When people have the opportunity not to work, they decide not to work. But if they're still given money, they are extracting value from a system and not producing. It creates a tipping effect where less and less people work, less and less is produced. And if you don't make stuff, there's no stuff to eat. The farmers are probably going to be okay. The small farmers. I got chickens in a garden outside. Not going to last us forever. We're reliant on the system, same as everybody else. But these stories will likely result in people panicking, will likely result in inflation. The AP reports, why are fears of inflation getting worse? They talk about all the hard numbers. Inflation higher than it's been since the 2008 crash. Where do you think we're going after this? They say, what's behind the concerns? The AP reports, mainly. It's the fact that prices for so many things are rising and seem likely to do so for the next several months at least. One reason for that is that prices tumbled in March and April of last year when the pandemic tore through the economy and have since rebounded. As a result, year-over-year price increases now look much higher than most consumers are used to. The consumer price index rose 2.6% in March compared with a year ago, a significant rise from just 1.7 a month earlier. I don't think they understand when they say this. I don't agree. They say, oh, well, prices went down because of the pandemic, and now it's normalizing, and it just looks worse. Or maybe people aren't making things. People aren't working. If someone's getting $16 an hour not to work, how do you get them to work in a chicken processing plant? You can't offer them 13, 14, 15, or 16 because they say, I get that for free as it is. Okay, how about 17? They say, so I'm only going to get an extra $1 per hour and have to work 40 hours a week? Sorry, ain't going to do it. How about 20? I'm only going to get $4 an hour more? Sorry, I'm not going to do it. $16 for unemployment is not just about giving people money. It's about giving them money in exchange for nothing, which means the amount of money you'd have to pay them to get them to decide to come back to work is probably double what the government is paying them. I don't know, man. Some people might just never be incentivized to work at that point. I mean, think about it. All the free time in the world. Nothing is more precious than time. So when given the choice to not work, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they say, I'd rather stay home? You will never convince me to work for any amount of money. Well, maybe $1 million. But what do people cherish most? They say, money can get you a lot, but it can't buy you time. The most valuable commodity. So people are now able to go and sit down by the river, hang out with their friends. In a lot of ways, it is a good thing. There's garbage processed trash food and high sugar trash. Maybe people should be eating more simply, not going to fast food restaurants, not going to Chinese food restaurants or burger joints or, buying expensive salty meals, going to get pad thai and chicken tikka masala. Maybe they should just be having some steamed chicken and rice. Cheap, healthy, better for you. Maybe that's the good thing. The problem is it's not just about the food. The food is the surface level. It's what we can see. Why? Because we eat. We eat every day. Not everybody, but, they should. And so we're constantly looking at the cost of food. You know what we're not looking at the cost of? Tools. Well, fuel, I guess we do. But tools, lumber, plastics, products, all of this is connected. It's not just like you can jack up the price of food and gas and not see the prices rise everywhere else. Because we pay so much attention to food and gas, we see the prices rising. And that causes fear and panic buying and inflation and potentially runaway inflation. As more and more prices rise and people demand more money or just stop working because of Biden's policies. What about lumber? What about steel? Well, those, of course, are skyrocketing. We can see this from Ohio. They say cat food, lumber, cleaning supplies, and more. They're saying there's a shortage of cat food, which I experienced it. We have a cat. You may have seen his photos on Instagram. His name is Bucko. He walks around. He's now an outside cat, does his thing. He's very happy. And we have a decent amount of food. We don't go crazy. And we were running out of food. And I went to go buy some. Couldn't get any. It took like a month to order food. We go to the grocery store. There's cat food there, but the shortages are real. Lumber, wood, and electrical appliances, cleaning products, sewing machines, and fabrics. We can see on the surface what's being hit first. They say the chicken shortage, oh, that's due to the chicken wars at fast food restaurants. So are people eating too much chicken, I guess? They're panic eating chicken? I don't think so. These places always sold chicken. I don't know. But what do you think's happening beneath the surface? The harder to make goods, the more refined goods, the complicated, complex goods, when you can't hire people to do these jobs, when these people require more money because they want to eat chicken. I fear when we see these stories, it's easy to look to the future as to what's going to happen next. A few months ago, I pointed this out. Maybe it was even last year. I think it was a few months ago. I had gone on Amazon and I needed a tablet for work stuff. So I picked, a Galaxy tablet or whatever, put it in my cart, and then forgot about it. I think I was working. And so I ended up not buying it. A couple days later, I opened Amazon again, and it said there are some changes to the price of goods in your cart. And I said, what is this? And I opened up my cart, and there it was. The tablet that was a few $100s had gone up like 60-something% in cost. Why? They could no longer deliver to me the product at the same price. Inflation hit like boom, just like that. I fear that's what's coming next. When we see cleaning supplies in shortage, which, includes toilet paper, gasoline shortages and prices skyrocketing, a cyber attack, an oil pipeline shut down by Democrats, food shortages. Weeks ago, these are being reported. Trucker shortages, meaning supplies aren't going to be delivered. It doesn't hit at once. It doesn't hit immediately. I remember when the pandemic first started, people were like, I went to the Walmart, everything was fine. And then like 2 weeks later, Walmart was empty. So, what I'm doing is I'm just making sure I have standard level of supplies. You don't want to panic. We do have like emergency food stuff and things that we bought last year because we have a big facility. We have like a dozen plus people who are working here now and we're expanding. We don't have any kind of like level of hoarding where we'd survive in the event of a total shortage or shutdown. And our garden has like tomatoes and jalapenos, not something we can subsist off of. So I'm going to make sure that we have, what we get, like a week's worth of groceries. Maybe I should do more than that. I don't know, but I don't want to contribute to hoarding or panic buying. So it's scary times, man. The bigger fear, I suppose, is hyperinflation because it means the money you have now, even the money the government gives you, will be worth nothing eventually. It's an inflationary currency. And so long as Biden and the Democrats just think they can keep printing money, we are on a roller coaster going straight down from the peak. It's going to happen faster and faster. It's exponential. That's why the AP was talking about runaway inflation. Runaway inflation is just because the prices go up and more and more people panic. It causes the prices to go even higher. And then the government loses control, or the Fed loses control. And the prices just never stop going up. They think they can print their way out of a hole, and that's what they've been doing. Borrowing trillions upon trillions and printing trillions of dollars, and the bill comes due. Now they're giving much of this money to people to not work. What happens next? Bitcoin is skyrocketing. Ethereum is skyrocketing. And I'll tell you what's scary is that when it comes to Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's not that they're going up in value. It's that the dollar is going down in value. When you see gas up 22% last month, when you see chicken up 11 or 15%, beef up the same amount, well, then you'd expect standard hard assets to see a similar price increase. Bitcoin's way, way, way up. So people are finding out that as the dollar loses value, you need to put it somewhere. Otherwise, you're going to lose buying power. Bitcoin's a deflationary currency. So long as people want to use it as a store of value and it's decentralized, it will retain that value. In fact, it'll go up because the demand for the hedge is greater than the amount of people willing to actually supply it. There's less liquidity. In the end, the demand for Bitcoin will go up. The nature of Bitcoin will result in Bitcoin becoming more and more valuable. So that's what people are doing. They're buying Bitcoin like crazy. Now it's at $60,000. I'll tell you what. People right now are thinking about Bitcoin being too expensive. I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I'll tell you what I did. I bought some Bitcoin. And I've periodically bought little bits here and there. I remember when it went from $1 to $5, I said, man, if only I bought it $1. Went from 5 to 20, I said, man, if only I bought it 5. Went from 20 to 100, man, if I only bought it 20. Every single time, so people keep saying. Now, I'll tell you this, when Bitcoin hits $1 million per Bitcoin, People will be saying, man, if only I bought it $200,000. And the reason they'll say that is it will hit those numbers. And then people point out, yeah, only rich people can buy it then. You don't buy one Bitcoin. You can buy fractions all the way down to the 8th decimal point. And if you look at Bitcoin, the 8th decimal point means the smallest division of a Bitcoin, it's called a Satoshi, will eventually equal 1 cent. And then a Bitcoin is $1 million. Now, it's hard to actually explain how this would be in terms of buying power, because it will reach $1 million. And that's just because the value of the dollar is going to rapidly decline. So I don't know what you should do. You should talk to your friends and your family, and hopefully this is nothing, but it certainly feels like the crisis is just getting worse. I think that in the next few months we're going to see it be a lot worse. So you do what you do. Keep in mind, panicking will make everything worse. But I'm also not the kind of person to just look at these news stories that came out a week ago or whatever and be like, oh, I'm not going to report that. No, I have to. I'm not the kind of person who's going to whisper to my family what to do and then leave y'all hanging the bag. Maybe that's something the New York Times would do. I don't know. But I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.